Hey guys, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Usman versus Buckley just wrapped up, and I'm going to run through the card and give you a breakdown of everything that happened this event, so let's get into it. And starting off the card, we had Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Vanessa Demopoulos. So I said that Jamey-Lyn Horth was going to win this one by a decision win, and I got it correct. She actually won this one by a decision, pretty dominant decision as well at that. So breaking down the fight, round 1, Horth is using her height and range instantly just to kick at Demopoulos at distance, backing up, staying on the back foot and tagging her with any counters. While she was really just chopping at that main leg as well early, sort of setting that up as a base. Demopoulos tries to get Horth against the cage, but ends up hitting some big shots that have her sort of stumbling around. She ended up getting cut open in the first round, and for the rest of the round she was just circling on the back foot and getting kicked to the body. And at the end of the round, Horth backs her to the cage where she takes some massive shots and ends up putting herself on bottom position. Very clear round for Horth. Round 2, Horth comes out very strong to start the round, whipping kicks to the body of Demopoulos as well as landing these big hooks and straights, just square on Demopoulos. Demopoulos does start to pick it up a little bit in the second half of the round, but the body kicks are really starting to show their effect. Demopoulos is sort of gassing out and dropping her hands and getting caught more so. Second round, probably Horth as well. Round 3, Demopoulos comes out swinging, trying to hurt Horth early, but Horth keeps her range with some pretty well placed body kicks. Demopoulos gets to show off some of her grappling early in this round, but gets put on bottom position pretty quickly and takes some brutal elbows as well as hammer fists to the body. And then back on the feet, it's the same as the last 2 rounds. Demopoulos looked incredibly hurt. She tried to hold out, but Horth was just beating up on her. Taking a 30-27 decision, Horth won this one very dominantly, and it was actually a pretty good fight to start the card, and Horth is very impressive. She's a very good striker, very technical, and she looked really good this fight. So yeah, good way to start off the card. And next up on the prelims, we had Rowe versus Ange Loosa. So I said that Ange Loosa was going to take this one by a decision win. I was actually wrong. Rowe managed to get a pretty impressive comeback third round KO in this fight. And he was losing but managed to pull off a nice KO in the third. So breaking it down, round 1, early in the round Loosa just starts chopping at the front leg of Rowe. He would blitz in, land these 2-piece combos, and that was mainly all he did this fight. Halfway through round 1 he did take Rowe down and managed to hold him there for the rest of the round. And by the way, the crowd hated this. The Atlanta crowd was very intolerant to any sort of wrestling. They would boo whenever sort of a fight would go to the ground. And it was a common trend throughout this card, but regardless, Loosa won this one through sort of controlling him on the ground. Round 2, Loosa comes out on the feet with the same sort of strategy in the first. He'd blitz in with a 2-piece combo while chopping at the legs whenever he wasn't blitzing in. And in this round, he actually tried to take Rowe down, but fails, and Rowe starts taking back the round, landing his own big shots on Loosa against the cage. When it's looking like Rowe sort of won this round back and landing more than Loosa lands this huge flurry of shots that puts Rowe down, and he eats even more big shots on the ground. Didn't get put out though. Loosa's round secured in the second. So in the third round, he's down 2, and it's a pretty low volume round to start. Loosa's taking Rowe down early in the round, but Rowe gets back to the feet pretty soon. And right as Loosa loses his mouth guard, he gets put up against the cage, and Rowe just starts unloading everything he had on Loosa. Who, may I remind you, still doesn't have his mouthpiece in, and it gets to the point where Rowe just holds Loosa's head against the cage and just starts landing these massive hooks and uppercuts straight to the jaw of Loosa. Finish the fight with a KO. Very impressive comeback. I don't know how Loosa didn't lose all his teeth from that. But yeah, very good comeback win for Rowe for this one. Following that, we had Ricky Simone versus Cameron Smotherman. So I said that Ricky Simone was going to take this one by a second round knockout. I just didn't like Smotherman's odds, especially with him stepping up somewhat sort of late notice for this one. And I was actually correct. Ricky Simone won this one. It was by a decision, not actually a finish, so it did go to a pretty drawn out decision, but it was still a pretty decent performance from Simone. So round 1 opens up. Smotherman comes out trying to hold the center of the octagon, but in return he's eating these leg kicks. He's getting kicked in the head, and he very quickly gets picked up and slammed by Simone, and Simone just starts taking the back and constantly threatening submissions. And Smotherman could not get back to the feet and almost got submitted multiple times whenever he would try, but eventually he did manage to get back to the feet, and Smotherman just got held against the cage and beat up for the rest of the round. Round 2, Smotherman does look a little better now that he's back on the feet, and Simone is also ripping to the body and kicking the legs, so it is roughly even on the feet. But once again, Smotherman gets taken down again, and this time in the center of the octagon, so he can't even use the cage to get up. And just like last round, even when it did get to the feet, Simone was just holding Smotherman up against the cage, breaking near sort of the end of the round, and there were some really nice punches landed in combination on Simone, but He was also taking damage to the body himself, so it was kind of a harder round to score, but definitely Simone won off control time. And then round 3, Smotherman comes out trying to land big on the feet, but in the striking, both fighters are pretty even. And just like last round, Simone shoots in and eventually gets Smotherman to the ground. Back against the cage in the clinch, he lands a nice elbow to the head of Simone that forces him to strike in the center. And while Smotherman is landing, Simone is also just landing big shots in return and constantly shooting in to reset the momentum of Smotherman. Ultimately, Smotherman did land some big shots, including a hook that landed clean on the chin of Simone in that last round. But ultimately, he just couldn't find a finish, and when the bell went, Simone took a pretty clear decision for this one. Pretty impressive performance, not really what I was expecting. I was expecting a striking heavy approach, but still a pretty decent performance from Simone. And up next was Cody Durden versus Jose Ochoa. So I said that Jose Ochoa would take this one by a decision win. I just thought he was better, and I thought his fight with Lona Kavanagh actually showed sort of the level that he was on. And I was actually correct, he did win this one, but it was actually by a round 2 knockout, and it was a pretty gnarly one as well at that. So round 1, on the feet, it was clear that Ochoa was the better striker. He was ducking out of the way of anything that Durden was throwing and landing sort of big counters in return. And with a spinning back fist at the start, he sort of dazed Durden for a moment, and it was probably the most impactful shot of that round. Durden does try to even the round out with a takedown and some wrestling, but Ochoa makes it back to the feet pretty soon after he gets taken down, and from that point just denies any further attempts from Durden to take it to the ground. And he was just piecing him up on the feet. In the final minute, Ochoa does crack Durden, but Durden fires back and cracks Ochoa as well before taking him down. And while Ochoa is getting put on bottom, he is picking up these nice little shots from bottom and doing some real damage. There was never really a moment where Durden looked comfortable on this fight. So that round ends. Round 2, Durden comes out grinning ear to ear. It was really strange. He was like smiling before they like sort of met in the middle, and then instantly gets caught with an uppercut that has him sort of backing up on wobbly legs before he got caught with a follow-up hook against the cage, put him down, put him out. Ochoa follows up with some ground and pound to finish the fight, but it wasn't really necessary. Durden was very much out. And Ochoa looked really good this fight, maybe lacking some takedown defense, but on the feet there was never a moment where he looked like he was losing. Durden isn't that hard to finish, but either way, Ochoa put him out badly, so very impressive performance from Ochoa for this one. And next up was Malcolm Wellmaker versus Kris Moutinho. So I said that Malcolm Wellmaker was going to get a first round KO for this fight. I was actually correct. He won this one by a devastating first round KO, probably the best knockout of the night or best performance of the night. So breaking it down, instantly Wellmaker is taking the legs out from under Moutinho. His leg kicks were actually really powerful as well. And throughout the fight, everything that sort of Wellmaker was landing was with a lot of power behind it. Body kicks snapping to the body, leg kicks taking the legs out from under Moutinho. And when Moutinho would back up against the cage, he would get tagged with his heavy hooks that had him sort of wobbling around on unstable legs. Surprisingly, he actually ended up surviving and took some brutal shots to the body as well. And for the rest of the round, Wellmaker's just landing huge on the head of Moutinho. That Moutinho is somehow eating and marching forward, but you can tell that these shots are sort of bouncing the head back and forcing Moutinho to sort of reconsider, put up a high guard. But 2.5 minutes into the round, Wellmaker winds back and unleashes this deadly hook that puts Moutinho down badly, puts him out badly, finishes the fight. An amazing performance from Wellmaker, and he has some insane power in his hands. I'm very excited to see what's up next for him. I think very soon we'll see his name in the top 15. Give it like a year and a bit or so. But oh my god, is this guy a fiery prospect at the moment. Next fight on the card. And up next was Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. So I said that Michael Chiesa would get a round 2 submission for this fight. I just thought his ground game would be overall better than McGee. And while McGee is good on the feet, I think that he lacked the sort of ground game to not get submitted. I was actually wrong, kind of. Michael Chiesa won this one, but it was by a decision, and it was actually closer than I thought it would be. So round 1, very slow, low volume first round. Neither fighter's landing much. Surprisingly, Chiesa is actually doing a bit better on the feet than McGee. He's landing on the chin of McGee and got sort of McGee to panic shoot for the first takedown, but it got denied. McGee was bleeding from his right eye though this round, so it did look pretty bad, but it was due to a head clash, so it doesn't really count. But either way, Chiesa was definitely winning this first round on the feet, so he definitely took that one. Round 2, very early in the round, Chiesa gets a kick straight to the cup. McGee threw this inside leg kick, it didn't even graze, it landed straight on there. But despite this, Chiesa seemed to be pushing forward more on McGee this round. He was throwing more volume than he did in round 1, but still a very slow, low volume fight, where Chiesa probably won the round through forward pressure over anything. He landed slightly more, but it got to the point where they were judging off forward pressure, so very, very low volume. Round 3, Chiesa is definitely winning in the striking this round as well. McGee's throwing hardly anything the whole round. Ultimately, Chiesa probably just won this round through higher volume, clinch control, denying McGee's takedowns, but it wasn't much, and Chiesa does end up taking it when it comes to the decision, but this was a really, really slow, boring fight, and nothing really happened. Brought the mood down, especially after that last Wellmaker knockout, so yeah, not the most amazing performance from either fighter here. And next up was probably the most notorious fight of the card, not for the right reason. So Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Bilardo. Now, I said that Paul Craig was going to submit Bilardo in the 3rd round. I was just worried about Bilardo's health condition and how that would sort of result in him fighting. But it didn't even really matter because this fight ended in a no contest. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Round 1, Bilardo is pressing Craig up against the cage, having Craig circle around on the back foot while Bilardo would blitz in and throw these shots over the top. But Craig was also doing a decent job at kicking back at Bilardo on the back foot. He would whip these kicks down straight to the body of Bilardo and would land his own sort of shots from like counter positions. But very early in, he takes Bilardo down. Bilardo actually ends up getting top position though, starts threatening a triangle choke. And out of nowhere, Bilardo stands up and he's sort of, it looks like it's going to get back to the feet, but he dives back in, lands a shot, and while he's sort of posturing up again, Craig hits him with an illegal up kick, and it puts him out cold in quotation marks, because a lot of people have said, and upon rewatching it, it does honestly look like he faked being knocked out. He goes to throw his arms up to sort of contest to the ref, like what just happened, and then when he notices that the ref isn't looking, he sort of like fakes being out, pretends to wake up, pretends to start like pushing himself up against the cage like he just like, I don't even know what. Even tried to leg lock the ref, but it does look very suspicious. I mean, I've seen people wake up quickly after knockouts, but this was strange. Either way, the judges deemed it to be an accident from Paul Craig. No contest. Yeah, not much else to say. I don't think we're ever going to see this fight play out. Yeah, next fight. And now we're on to the main card, Alonzo Menifield versus Oumar Sy. So I said that Oumar Sy was going to get this one done. I said by a decision win. I just saw his sort of wrestling being too much of a threat for Menifield's strike-heavy approach to his fights. I was actually wrong. Menifield ended up taking this one by a decision win. Not the most amazing fight. Both the performances were pretty sort of boring. But either way, he took the win. Round 1, Sy's constantly pushing forward and landing these jabs and straights. And Menifield, in the meantime, sort of staying on the back foot and landing an overhand every now and then, or sort of throwing something over the top. And he was honestly doing more damage than Sy when it came to striking. In the later half of this round, Menifield started pushing forward on Sy actually, and was starting to get him to bite pretty hard in the feints. And in the end, while Sy was probably landing more this round, Menifield was landing harder, and the round most likely would go to him. Round 2, same thing as the first, Sy's landing more jabs and straights, but Menifield is unloading on the occasional overhand, and the power of his other shots was a lot more than anything Sy would throw. Sy began shooting in takedowns this round, and Menifield did a good job in defending the takedowns, almost guillotining Sy at a few points, but ultimately he did get taken down after a long period of defending against the cage. Very, very close round. I don't actually know how I'd score this one, maybe Sy, but close again. Round 3, a ridiculously low volume round, with it being evident that they have both sort of exhausted themselves from the wrestling in round 2. And this was a really hard round to score, with Sy landing significantly more, but Menifield landing heavy, sort of same as we saw in the first. And in the end, Menifield ended up taking the decision, but this was another really slow, sort of less than dominant performance from Menifield. And yeah, sort of a boring start to the main card. Next fight. And moving up, we had Mansur Abdul-Malik versus Cody Brundage. So I said that Cody Brundage was going to win this one by around 1 KO. I just thought he sort of was too dangerous on the striking if Mansur Abdul-Malik tried to sort of get in the pocket with him. I was actually wrong. Mansur Abdul-Malik won this one by a decision win, but it was sort of a strange decision, and it could actually be argued that Brundage did win, but we'll get into it. So round 1, very slow start to the fight, with both fighters not really throwing much and really just trying to feel each other out. With kicks to the body and legs at distance being sort of the main shots thrown. And that went for the whole round, with Brundage occasionally blitzing in, landing a 1-2 combo, but Abdul-Malik landed a nasty front kick straight to the head of Brundage, so it was roughly even. I'd say that Malik probably won this round, but it was very, very close. Round 2, once again, a surprisingly slow round, considering who the fighters are. with very patient performances from both. And while Brundage is occasionally landing, Abdul-Malik is landing a bit harder, and a hook midway through the round busts Brundage's ear open. But once again, it was such a slow round that it comes down to the little things, such as sort of who was applying pressure, who was moving forward on the front foot. And I'd probably have to give that one to maybe Brundage. But once again, very, very close round. Round 3, Abdul-Malik comes out instantly with a flying knee that pushes Brundage over, and from here Brundage gets back up and they just start swinging like crazy. This was a complete opposite of the last 2 rounds in terms of pace, and both were landing really big shots on each other in a complete sort of brawl. And Malik throws a knee that Brundage sort of drops his head to sort of get out of the way of, and when he does, he clashes heads with Abdul-Malik in a collision that caused more damage to Brundage. It caused him to sort of stoop down against the cage, lie on the floor. Malik followed up with ground and pound, and it seemed like won the fight via TKO, via ground strikes. But then they officially review it, and the judges decide that it was sort of more the head clash that finished Brundage than anything else. So they go to sort of the decision cards, and Malik wins that one. Kind of a weird way of scoring it, considering the only thing that happened in the third was Malik dropped Brundage, so obviously that's going to be sort of what the judges remember. Either way, he takes that one. Another weird end to this fight. This card's really strange with that, so yeah. Next fight on the card. Following that, we had Cody Garbrandt versus Raoni Barcelos. Now, I said that Raoni Barcelos was going to get a decision win in a very similar fashion to the Talbot fight. I was actually correct with Barcelos winning this one, and he won it by a decision, but there was a lot less wrestling than I thought there would be. So, round 1 comes out hot. Barcelos sort of gets chased down while Garbrandt's firing off these fast combos, trying to catch him very early in the fight, but quickly Garbrandt just ends up on the back foot, circling around the outside of the cage. There was a moment where he sent Barcelos off balance with sort of a blitz in combo, but instead decided to showboat while Barcelos was getting back up again instead of trying to sort of chase a finish. And later in the round, ends up getting hit with some big shots himself, primarily a knee that cut Garbrandt open very early in the fight. But to Garbrandt's credit, he was able to sort of defend and shuck off all of Barcelos' takedowns attempts this round, and would often tag him with heavy shots when Barcelos would sort of abort the takedown and back up again. Winning the round primarily just through his striking. A decent round for Garbrandt, but he could have finished this so much earlier if he didn't decide to showboat. Round 2, very early in the round, Barcelos gets close to getting a takedown against the fence, but isn't quite able to do it. But regardless, in this round, Barcelos had picked it up majorly in the striking anyway. While Garbrandt is landing occasionally, Barcelos is using his footwork and head movement to sort of move out of the way anything Garbrandt would throw at him and fire off his own counter shots. Garbrandt is having a moment through landing some more powerful shots in this round, but constantly sort of being pressured back by Barcelos, and combined with a moment at the end of the round where Barcelos had Garbrandt hurt and was sort of being too much for him. I think Barcelos takes that one, but it was sort of more competitive than the first. Round 3, as early as a minute into the round, Barcelos lands his clean shot that had decent power in it, and actually managed to sort of beat Garbrandt in his own game this round. In fact, he was tagging Garbrandt so bad that Garbrandt was like shooting him for takedowns himself, which isn't really his usual strategy. He likes to stay on the feet, and Garbrandt was failing all these takedowns. Barcelos almost locked in a guillotine choke before giving it up and transitioned to the back and sort of tried to lock in a rear naked choke near the end of the round. It returns to the feet where Garbrandt has a few moments of superior striking, but in the end Barcelos just did way too much in round 2 and 3. Took the fight by a decision. Garbrandt didn't look amazing this fight. He didn't really have any moments where he looked amazing outside of the first. Barcelos is very, very well rounded though, so kind of a difficult opponent there, but yeah. Next fight on the card. And now we move on to Edmen Shahbazyan versus Andre Petroski. So I said that Edmen Shahbazyan was going to win this one by around 1 KO. I was correct about Shahbazyan winning, but it was actually by a decision in a lot more of a sort of slow-paced, languid fight than I thought it would have been. But breaking it down, round 1, another really slow start to a fight, as I said, with Shahbazyan winning on the feet mainly through using his range to sort of jab at Petroski from distance. Petroski does attempt 2 takedowns this round though, and Shahbazyan defends him reasonably easy and stays on the feet, where he's able to sort of pick at range at Petroski and land some big shots when sort of he gets him against the cage. Pretty clear round for Shahbazyan. Round 2, same as the previous round, Shahbazyan is fighting the same sort of range he is the whole fight. and he's winning on the feet. Petroski is struggling to close the distance and get takedowns. It was sort of that throughout the whole fight. There is a moment with 2 minutes left in the round where Petroski manages to take Shahbazyan down and land some big shots after, but it wasn't really enough to overcome the constant pressure of Shahbazyan pushing forward, so probably another round for Shahbazyan. And into round 3, Petroski shoots early and gets Shahbazyan to the ground, so it does look like it's going to sort of change tides here. But he gets back to the feet pretty quickly and pretty effortlessly as well. And in this round follows the same sort of tune as the other two. Shahbazyan sending shots down the middle and sending kicks to the head while staying at range, while Petroski's sort of trying to blitz in. He's not really throwing much, he's more looking for the takedowns where he can't really find success. There is a moment halfway through the round where Shahbazyan dropped Petroski with a body kick and tries to put him away with ground and pound, but Petroski survives, gets back to the feet. Shahbazyan sort of lets him back to the feet as well, just because he didn't want to sort of wrestle with Petroski where he'd sort of definitely get dominated. And when it goes to the decision, Shahbazyan takes a pretty decent performance. I mean, it was another very low volume fight from a fighter that I thought was going to be explosive, so yeah, kind of underwhelming. Yeah, and now we're on to the co-main event, Rose Namajunas versus Miranda Maverick. So I said that Rose Namajunas was going to win this one by decision. I just pictured her being a bit more experienced, having a better resume, and just being able to deal with anything that Maverick would throw at her. It's not like she hasn't seen it before. I was actually correct, Rose Namajunas won this one by a decision. It was actually decently close though. I thought it was going to be sort of one-way traffic, but Miranda Maverick put up a decent fight this fight. In the first round, it's roughly equal in the striking. In fact, Maverick is arguably landing the bigger shots to the head early on, but as the round goes on, Namajunas starts turning up, pushing forward, landing her own big shots, and the real round sort of swinging shots were in the close range with these scrappy exchanges that Rose was maybe slightly landing better in. But even then, Rose shot in for a takedown. It got denied against a fence where she almost put herself in a guillotine. And the round most likely went to Namajunas, but it was very, very close. I wouldn't be mad if he scored it for Maverick. But yeah, round 2, early on Maverick is throwing, but in turn is sort of leaving herself open to these big counters from Namajunas. And early in the round, Namajunas manages to get Maverick to the ground before Maverick could really get anything big off on the feet. But while trying to sort of take Namajunas' back, while trying to take Maverick's back, Namajunas puts herself on bottom position, and Maverick sort of takes that chance to try and lock in an arm triangle. And it was in very, very tight. I actually thought that Rose Namajunas was going to tap to it. Her face went bright red, and it was clearly squeezed in very tight, but Namajunas manages to get out of it. And while Namajunas dominated for the first half of that round, on the ground, it was just one-way sort of traffic from Maverick. A submission attempt that almost locked in completely. So once again, kind of hard to score. I would give it to Namajunas, but once again, another round where if you gave it to Maverick, I wouldn't be like upset. I could see the argument. Round 3, Maverick quickly tries to take Namajunas down, but Namajunas defends it well against the cage. She sort of breaks and creates distance before dropping Maverick with a well-timed left hook that sort of landed perfectly. It wasn't the most powerful, but it caught her right on the temple at the perfect time, dropped her. And for the rest of the round, Namajunas has maintained top position, even trying to lock in her own arm triangle, but it goes to the cards. Namajunas takes it by a decision. I think 2:30-27 is a bit crazy. Realistically, I saw her losing either round 1 or 2. But yeah, decent win for Rose. It was actually a decently fun fight to watch. Probably one of the better on the main card, but yeah. Next fight. And now we arrive at the main event, Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. Now I said that Joaquin Buckley was going to win this one by round 4 TKO. I was very, very wrong. Kamaru Usman won this one by a very, very dominant decision. I mean, it's not even in question whether Joaquin Buckley could have won this one. It was so one way throughout the whole fight. And we'll just jump straight into it. Round 1, early on the feet, it looks like Buckley has a striking advantage over Usman pretty clearly. He's sort of leaping around the place in his sort of usual fashion, staying on the back foot, but also running in, realistically jumping in and landing these hook combos that would sort of cause Usman to reconsider moving forward. About a minute into the round though, Usman takes Buckley down pretty easily, and for the rest of the round, he just holds Buckley there. This round was especially bad because Usman starts landing these elbows from top that cut Buckley open, and we're doing some really good damage. I'd say this was one of Usman's more damaging rounds this fight, so very clear cut round for Usman. Round 2, early in the round, it looks like Buckley has a massive advantage on the feet again. He's landing nicely on Usman and even hits Usman with a few oblique kicks to the knees, that's sort of causing Usman to buckle in. We all know his knees. He said it's not an issue in the post-fight, but I mean, come on. But like the last round, a minute into the round, Usman dives in and takes Buckley down again, and Buckley has no answer for the remainder of the round. He remains on bottom position for the rest of the round. Usman would sort of throw the occasional body punch or shot to the head, but it was realistically just him moving forward on the ground, just maintaining top position. Another clear round for Usman. Round 3, Buckley's winning on the feet, and then against the cage, he sort of doesn't have any defense against a takedown, gets taken onto bottom position, gives up the round, not being able to return to the feet. There is a silver lining to this round for Buckley, and that's he sort of had a moment to get proper damage off on the feet. I'd say that outside the 5th round, this was sort of his most damaging round on the feet, or maybe the 4th, but we can see as the fight stays on the feet for longer, especially in this 3rd round, it was about half on the feet compared to sort of a minute in the 1st. Buckley gets to let off a bit more. But either way, still an Usman round. Round 4, same as the other rounds, with a few exceptions, one of which being that it stayed on the feet for significantly longer. And when Usman shot in, there was a bit against the cage where Buckley was actually fending him off. He still got taken down in the end, but he was sort of holding him up, made sure he couldn't get the legs out from under him. And for the last 2 minutes, though, he just did get taken down. Didn't really do enough damage to make a valid argument for him winning prior to be taken down. So yeah, another clear round for Usman through the wrestling. Round 5, however, Buckley has a complete 180 in his performance. He absolutely dominated on the feet, was able to defend and break away from a lot of Usman's takedowns this round. In the last minute, there was a moment near the end of the round where Buckley was landing hard on Usman, and Usman was sort of walking backwards, circling around the outside of the octagon, just trying not to get caught by Buckley, because Buckley knew it was all or nothing here, trying to sort of get these power uppercuts and like really anything off to finish Usman. Anyway, the fight ends. He didn't manage to get it done. Usman wins a 49-46 decision. Fair. I mean, Buckley really didn't make any argument within the first 4 rounds to sort of give them to him. And this was a vintage Usman performance. Not to take away from Usman, Buckley had a bad performance here, but Usman looked really, really good. It was sort of the Usman we're used to seeing with his sort of American wrestling, and even though I don't think it's the best base in MMA nowadays, you can't deny he absolutely dominated Buckley with it this fight. Usman's calling for a title shot. That's a bit, come on now. You've been out of the division for like, what, close to 2 years. You lost twice to Leon Edwards. One more fight. And I think maybe pair him up with a Shavkat, or actually I like a Bilal matchup more, but Shavkat secondary. But I think a Bilal versus Usman for like #1 contender would be really, really fun. Maybe later this year, maybe start of next year. Buckley, on the other hand, had a really poor performance. His striking was really good like always, but he had no sort of takedown defense and would get ragdolled around a lot. He needs to sort of go back to the drawing board, maybe face some more sort of well-rounded opponents. I don't mind the idea of him going up against Jeff Neal, per se. Maybe a Kevin Holland, maybe MVP, depending if he wants to stay at middleweight or not. But yeah, I don't really know what's next for Buckley. Just more opponents, more experience, some better takedown defense. But yeah, not much to say in this main event. It was just kind of a one-way, no competition. Yeah, so yeah guys, that was UFC Fight Night, Usman versus Buckley. How did we do this card? Surprisingly, I didn't do too great. I got 62% for my predictions on who would win. Of those, I got the method by 50%, so half. And Cam is on a just ungodly comeback because he got 69% of his predictions correct. Beat me again this week. I really got to step up my game. Where would I rank this card? This card was very, very good to start with. I honestly was thinking this was going to be an A tier sort of fight night card up until the Wellmaker fight, and then after that it just dropped off in quality. All the fights after that were sort of low, sort of volume, languid, slow fights. So I'm gonna have to put it near the top of C tier. I'm gonna put below Burns vs Morales, but put it above Durden vs Rebars 2. Really, it's just heavy carrying from the prelims. Yeah, this card was decent, but nothing amazing. Next week, Hill vs Roundtree. Very, very excited for that one. That's going to be a very fun fight card. There's some really sneaky good fights on that, and my prediction video will be coming out soon for that one. But yeah, bye-bye!